Welcome to Let's Talk Energy. This special series, recorded at the Africa Energy Forum in Cape Town, is brought to you in partnership with the Electricity Hub as we speak with industry leaders, key stakeholders, and rising stars in Africa's energy sector.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Let's Talk Energy, a podcast powered by the Electricity Hub and EnergyNet, live at the Africa Energy Forum. My name is Bisaya Mofe. I'm a clean energy consultant with the Electricity Hub, a subsidiary of the Nextyear Group, and I'm honored to be speaking to one of the top leaders in the solar industry today. We'll be speaking with a representative from JA Solar, the Vice President himself, Hadyr KOUMAKPAI. Hadyr, how are you doing today?
Very good, very good.
Thank you so much. So a brief introduction for those of you who are new to the power sector or trying to understand how the power sector evolves. I would give you a brief introduction of who JA Solar is and how large they are in the power sector. JA Solar is a leading global manufacturer of high-performance photovoltaics PV products, widely recognized as one of the most influential players in the solar industry. JA Solar was established in 2005 and is headquartered in Beijing. The company has grown rapidly through vertical integration, producing everything high-quality silicon wafers to solar cells, advanced modules, even complete PV power station solutions. Over the years, JA Solar has built a reputation for technical innovation, reliability, and broad market reach. Its products are now shipped to over 178 countries and regions worldwide. They are used in residential rooftops, commercial installation, and large-scale utility projects alike. As of the first quarter of 2025, JA Solar has cumulatively shipped more than 280 gigawatts of PV products, making it one of the largest suppliers world. Wow, that's incredible. One of JA Solar's most remarkable achievements is its consistent recognition by the Renewable Energy Test Center, RETC, as the highest achiever, an accolade it has earned for 5 years consecutively. This recognition is one of the most rigorous, independent endorsements in the PV industry, awarded based on extensive testing, module performance, reliability, and quality under demanding conditions. I don't want to talk so much about JA Solar. I would like us to hear directly from the horse's mouth, and that is why we have Hadyr today. Thank you, Hadyr, once again for joining us. Well done with what you're doing with JA Solar. I can see how the company is blooming, how it's growing, but then we would like to know more about what JA Solar is doing. So, can you elaborate on the advancement in photovoltaic technology that JA Solar is implementing to enhance energy efficiency and reliability in Africa's diverse climates?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me. And as you said, we are one of the largest solar PV supplier worldwide. And just to bring a bit back, this year actually is a legacy. This year is our 20th years in operation. And, before even we started, back then in China, we have been the first company to start sales production. So when you're talking about JA, the first thing about is technology. And obviously, what is great, especially with our new Deep Blue 5.0, is it coming with another latest technology that we do call low oxygen wafer, which is kind of premium wafer, to be honest with you. And it's allowed to have elevate open circuits voltage and also reduce, let's say, the degradation, especially for the N-type. And on top of that, we also have the EPD technology that we set up recently, which also allow us to improve and protect the edge, improving our output of our product. One of the technology that we also bring in our Deep Blue 5.0 is the ALFR, which is actually the light reflective absorption that we have added to our technology, which allows our panels to absorb more light compared to other technology in the market today. So looking at Africa, you have so many different environments. We have desert, humidity. So for a company, it's about really having the right technology to the market, something that we have been working with for many years to now. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for that. I like how you've gone in depth and explained the series of things that happen before you get to meet the specific needs of some of these various regions in Africa. So my next question is going to be, what role do partnerships with local governments and organizations play in ensuring the successful implementation of solar projects? And how does JA Solar approach this? I know it has a lot of stakeholder engagement, and there's a common misconception of, once it's Africa, you can just replicate maybe, for example, what's going on in Nigeria, maybe in Ghana, and it'll be good. But I want to know, how do you approach this unique environment with the unique solutions you're providing to them?
Well, one thing we should keep in mind, right? African government have so much to deal with, to be honest. And for a company like JA, it's also quite important to having a lot of local people understanding the local environment. And obviously, for being one of the leading PV suppliers, we have seen so many different growth all over the world, right? So for us, every time when we have the chance to get involved with government, we make sure that we do share with them the experience that we had somewhere else. For years already, everybody is saying Africa will be the next market for PV. We are well with our sun that we have compared to many places. But so far, the total solar installed in Africa is still far away from 5% of the global volume installed. So you can imagine, we are very, very far away. So for us, every time we have the opportunity to share the experience, what happens somewhere else, to provide guidance, and as well when we have the chance to be in a project, we also ensure that we bring in our expertise on the table.
Thank you. I like how particular you are about Africa and getting Africa to the desired state. Over 600 million Africans still lack electricity, and understanding peculiar problems and providing the peculiar solutions to this problem is what is going to take us to where we are. So there's a common saying we have in Next Year and the Electricity Hub. We like to measure twice and cut once to avoid issues. And from what I've heard you say, I think you're measuring multiple times and cutting once to achieve your desired solution. We're going to talk from utility scale projects angle. So from utility scale projects like hydro to solar systems for farms, mines, and homes, what's JA Solar's Africa's strategic vision behind this diverse portfolio? How does it support resilience and inclusivity for solar in Africa's future?
Good question. What to keep in mind, right, is economy of a country are directly tied to the access to energy, regardless where you are on this earth. And we all know that you might have three major segments, right? One segment is the utility scale, right, which is directly connected. You have the second scale, which is the CNI, which is the commercial industry. And you have now the third scale, which is the home system, domestic use. And for JA, really, is about what type of policy, what type of regulation should be implemented in each country to allow each of those parties to have easy to the solar. The thing is, what you also figured out, regardless the type of energy you're talking about, the one that you can fastest access, that you can get in a very short time, if you want to, is the solar. Because it's just about bringing on site and install. Obviously, we have developed many different types of solutions, and you see nowadays, especially mining industry, as you said, they are going into solar. You will be even surprised. Nowadays, the petrol companies even installing solar on the petrol station. That says it all about how reliable is the technology. So for us, it's really about what should we do as a company to support every single government, to support every manufacture industry to transit to the solar, understanding that we're also fighting to the net zero, which is a target for majority of companies.
That's very incredible. I like how you keep breaking down the questions to cover not just about the organization, but then your consumers, your customers. So I can see how you're prioritizing the needs of your consumers and your customers while answering this question, which is incredible. And I also appreciate the fact that you recognize solar has an advantage because of its accessibility. So leading to our next question, what role does JE Solar play in advocating for policies that support renewable energy adoption, and how do you engage with these policymakers? I know we already spoke about how you work with local governments and organizations, but that's just one level. So now the policymakers, these are the people who determine the rules, the regulation, what we need to do to ensure certain things work. So how do we engage with policymakers to ensure that we have enough renewable energy adoption in Africa?
What we should understand is this, right? Policymakers do policy because they have a target they want to reach. And I do believe every policy is for the well-being of the population. So what we do as a company, first of all, is about make sure that we have solution available for the countries, one. Second, make sure that we also taking part to major communication, discussion, training, direct information of what we got and experience. Like, let me give you a simple example. Nowadays, we are hearing a lot, especially in Nigeria, that they are transiting toward local manufacturing. The thing is, how do you want to make this happen? What mistake you do, which has already been done in different countries in Africa? What should we avoid? What are the challenges we could face? How to avoid them? What are the needs and support you need for the government to ensure that your policy are successful? Because at the end of the day, a policy should be sustainable if you have the good apprehension, the good understanding of every risk around that policy. So our duty is about coming on the table and say, hey, you know what? In South Africa, we support a local factory to produce the first 75 megawatt this year in South Africa, for instance. Should we do the same in Nigeria? Yes, we can do it. How? That's where discussions will start. What is needed? What to be avoided? What support the government should put on the table? And one more thing that I keep saying, as long as you are able to provide cheap electricity to your population, and to every industry in your country, you boost your economy. My conversation will start from there. So we should get a cheap power to be able to boost our industry. But at the same time, we want to support the local manufacturing. We want to support different policies, allowing our growth and sustainable environment. But we get involved in those.
Thank you so much. You asked the foundational questions, especially about sustainability. So it's not about just doing projects. It's about making sure like the policies are sustainable to make these projects live long and empower the future we desire. Thank you so much for that. So speaking of sustainability, we're going to talk about environmental impacts right now of projects. So my question to you is going to be, how does JE Solar measure the environmental impacts of its project? And what is the company's goal regarding carbon emission reduction? And this question is very important to today's conversation because I was reading some articles some weeks back and they were saying a lot of clean energy project or clean environmental projects that we're seeing today, it's not as impactful as it should be because everything is tilting towards greenwashing. But now, to avoid situations of greenwashing, how does JE Solar measure environmental impacts and what are your goals regarding carbon emissions reductions?
Good question. And well, I think people are afraid inhabit their own opinion, right? But as you said, let me maybe clarify a little bit. First of all, I would say we are happy enough to have a founder which called Jim Balfour, who is a very, let's say, climate driving as a person. And like in 2023, for instance, as a company, we cooperate with the World Wildlife Fund, WWF, to develop a zero carbon emission factory, production of cells, production of wafers. And we have actually our first trial on Tujin and Zanju factory of zero emission carbon. And we are actually working very closely on different scopes, scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, throughout our production. And if you consider that in 2024, we actually reduced about 6.6 million cubic meters and close to 55,000 tons of recycled waste in our energy factory. So this is about 235 tons of reduction of annual emission in 2024. So that just been said, this is the numbers, right? And we actually a silver sustainable rating from EcoVadis. So the thing for us is really not about just say it because you want to say it, but it's about the data, the information, it's about the numbers that we are able to provide, which are actually very public. So sustainability is a really important for the actions that everybody should think about. Even when you open your factory, even if you're not producing PV, the first thing you should think about how you want to reduce your CO2. What are the measurements you want to take to not having too much waste? This is a process. And as a company, we have get involved in that conversation and we have established numbers of approaches on how to make it sustainable. And we are happy to help every single industries or every single companies who are willing to go to that direction. And I do believe it's a goal of everyone today to work hard to save our planet for our future generation.
Thank you so much, Hadyr, for that. A few things I picked from this. First of all, the leadership is very important because I remember you saying your founder is a very big climate enthusiast. So leadership is very important. Well done with the WWF, by the way. And also another thing I'm picking from what you're saying, amongst numerous things you said, of course, is data, measuring your data, looking at what is on ground and measuring what you're doing is also extremely important. Thank you so much for that. So this is going to be our last question, and I feel like I'm missing you already because I'm really enjoying this conversation. So, looking ahead, what emerging trends do you foresee in Africa's renewable energy sector, and how can Africa position itself to capitalize on this development? So, to top off on that, I would want to say that so many people are saying, oh, Africa is not being realistic with its climate and energy ambitions because we are following the footsteps of people who have been way ahead of us. So we need to come up with practical steps and practical solutions and to fit the context of our own situation. There's this book, The Time Traveling Economist. The author of the book said that you can't just jump your way into a future you desire. You have to follow certain steps. So I think the amount of energy Africa is currently consuming is the same amount of energy that the United Kingdom was consuming about 30, 40 years back. So what trends do you see with these factors now being practical, being calculative? What trends do you see or foresee in the coming years for Africa's renewable energy sector? And how can we position ourselves to capitalize in these developments?
Very interesting. I was having a conversation with a friend like last year, I think during doing one of the show, and he was telling me, yes, now we should be able to do every single technology, like producing our own TV, producing our cars, and we will be competing directly against other big producers. And I said, when we are fighting to reach that level, they are fighting to be already on different planets and constructing a house on different planets, navigating different planets. We are not there yet. So if you feel like you want to go to the roots, what is the key route? For me, I do believe the key route is easy access for industrialization. Energy is important. Technology are important. But if you go in the deep problem of Africa, we see how the serious food issue. Living good life, there are a couple of things you need to ensure. What are you eating? You have enough food for your population. Second, housing. And third, electricity, energy. I agree that certain people might say that we are jumping over stage, that we may be missing the basis. But for me, the basis I really believe is affordable energy for every single thing. I know you are the one asking the question, but honestly, can you name one thing that we need in Africa which do not need energy? Name one.
You're asking me one thing we need to see Africa's electricity sector move forward. I think it's, first of all, it has to do with like the regulations and the governments. We need to start from there. So that will determine the next steps we'll take. But I think we have abundance of resources. We have hydro solutions. Africa's market is good for carbon market development. We have water, we have sun, we have geothermal, we have a lot of things. So the one thing that we need is just, I think, stable leadership.
Yeah, obviously, leadership are very important, but again, whatever you do, even education,
because stable leadership, because they're the one that determine and we follow. It's a very linear relationship between the micro and the macro scope of this thing. So if the leaders do not set the proper standards, there's going to be a lot of miseducation and misinformation. So once we have that right, I feel like naturally everything is going to flow. But education, you made a very good points. Thank you.
I also agree, right? Leadership are the one bringing the solution. We are working on the policy. And I think what I also believe that we need in Africa is really about thinking about how to make things easier, not how to make it complicated. Because as long as it's easier, even though I know that sometimes our economy needs some taxes, but without putting the fundamental to create that economy, to boost the numbers of companies, and because more you export, more you produce, more stronger is your economy. But if you don't make it easy for people to, first of all, open the factory, get involved in different businesses, building in the country, it will be quite difficult to have a diverse economy. Because what we figured out, especially with different war we are seeing nowadays, is at the end of the day, economy, which I rely only in one line of business, is to survive, having a serious hard time during any challenges. So I think diversity in different economic sectors are quite vital, and all of them, every single of them, need energy today. And I do believe with the solar PV, we are bringing to the people a very reliable electricity and very affordable as well for them to be able to bring and to have exponential growth when it comes to the economy. So that's what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hadyr. You've been fantastic. Personally, from someone working in the sector, I have also learned a lot. And from how you've broken down the questions, answered the questions intelligently, I'm seeing new perspectives. So I'm sure our audience too will be very excited to listen to this podcast, and they'll be very excited to take away some of the things you've said, coming from one of the biggest players in the solar industry. For me, my takeaway is you need to understand your problem. Those unique problems have unique solutions. Another thing for me is data is extremely important. Lastly, the thing I'm going to take from this podcast is education. Very, very important. I know I said the last thing, but again, the mistake for me is we need to find a way to make things easier so we can attract investments and we could just build better partnerships. Thank you so much, Hadyr, once again for joining us on this episode. The audience, thank you so much for joining. You can follow us on all our social media platforms, The Electricity Hub, on LinkedIn, NG Electricity Hub, on Twitter, NG Electricity Hub, Instagram, The Electricity Hub, on Facebook as well. Feel free to follow EnergyNet as well and keep up with what is happening at the AEF. I know this is where the AEF is over, but you need to go and feed yourself this. AEF this year is a blast. I think it's the best so far. See you next time. I remain your host, Busayo Amofe. Thank you for joining once again. Have a great day.
You've been listening to Let's Talk Energy at the Africa Energy Forum in partnership with the Electricity Hub. Tune in every week for a new episode featuring voices driving Africa's energy transition.